Hello and welcome to Mullen's Benefits Companion, a podcast that helps employers navigate the complex legal challenges of managing their employee benefit plans. I'm your host, Brydon DeWitt, and today I'm joined by special guest, Nichole Labott, Managing Director at SageView Advisory Group. Welcome back to the Benefits Companion, Nichole.
Thanks, Brydon, for having me.
Today's topic is really timely, and I know one that employers are thinking about. I read a statistic from a report conducted in 2021 by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development that notes that women today are retiring with 30% less income than men. We know that women, on average, earn less than men and end up saving less for retirement as a result. Women also live longer than men, making it even more important for them to have enough to set aside for a longer period of retirement. Nichole, what are you seeing?
We're seeing the same things, Brydon. I think the big problem is that, the median household retirement savings for women is just $23,000 compared to men, which is $76,000. And almost 1/3 of women say they have saved less than $10,000 for retirement or nothing at all.
Yeah, and that's really, we're living in the era of defined contribution retirement savings. That's really a looming problem. And especially with women living longer than men, needing that additional retirement income.
Yeah, I think there's actually 4 forces that are working against women when it comes to financial wellness and specifically saving for retirement. You've got the age-old concern of the pay gap. You probably know that women on average make about 22% less than men. Other studies show that gap even larger. But I think some other things that, could be addressed is really that, we as women, we leave the workforce. We leave the workforce, obviously, sometimes when we have children, we leave the workforce to care for elderly parents. And as you mentioned, we tend to live longer, which I guess is a good thing. But, the other thing that, might be more interesting to discuss too is that, 30% of women are not offered a retirement benefit at work. And that was really a surprising figure to me.
And why do you think that is?
I think it's primarily because I guess the term that they use is women tend to, quote, downshift their career, or maybe just voluntarily take a lower position at an organization, or probably more aptly work less hours. So if they're working part-time, as you know, there's some restrictions that they have in terms of even becoming eligible for the 401k plan. And as I mentioned, being a full-time caregiver to both children and parents, gets in the way of them really accumulating savings and able to do it, as you know, and I know, for a long period of time, which really makes the difference when you're trying to accumulate wealth. Right.
So if you're dropping in and out of the workforce, you're not, making those annual contributions to a 401k plan. And so there's that gap in the savings, and then you're losing the earnings.
That's right.
They would gain on those contributions they would be making if they were still continuously employed.
You're exactly right. And I know, you and I, from day to day live and work in kind of the retirement world. But unfortunately, these negative numbers also contribute to women who are going to college more often. But that translates into also taking on more student loan debt.
I think the good news for women, Brydon, is that, that consistently the studies show that when women are given the opportunity to do so, they save at much higher rates. As we've talked before, there's so much discussion about this pending legislation called Secure 2.0. And it seems like so long ago because it was right before COVID that the original Secure Act passed. And under that act, it was some great news, I guess, part-time employees received, is that as long as they work 500 hours in 3 consecutive years, they will be eligible for the plan. You and I both know that prior to that, they had to work 1,000 hours, and that made it really hard for a part-time employee who was consistently taking care of young children or older parents to achieve that eligibility designation.
And I think the overwhelming positive statistic for women is that 80% of women control and manage household finances. So I expect in the future we'll see these gaps lessen and their retirement savings rates and balances continue to increase.
So, Nichole, what are some things employers can consider to help address the situation where female workers are not saving at the same rate?
Yeah, I think the first thing is just be mindful of the statistics. I mean, if I was an HR professional, I think being mindful of the pay gap. I see a lot of my clients that are instituting programs like mentoring and sponsorship to help women kind of progress through their career and really lobby for those higher wages and pay. I think that's the first thing they could do. I mean, the second thing that I think they could do is make their employees mindful of, the importance of saving, even when you do have to step out of the workforce for retirement. Lastly, I think there's some plan design features, of course, that would be so helpful, like automatic enrollment and auto escalation, such that when women do come back into the workforce, that doesn't get swept under the rug or forgotten, because working moms do carry so many things on their shoulders, especially as they're re-entering the workforce. And I think that lastly, something that we can keep our fingers crossed for, again, there's some pending legislation which would allow for, and this really addresses more so women that have taken student loans. There is some pending legislation, again, not yet passed, but if it is passed, then it would allow employers to not only provide employees an employer matching contribution, but if in fact they do have a student loan, the match could be applied to offset those student loans.
Yeah, and that's a good point. The drag of having the student loan burden on the ability to defer money, compensation for retirement. And another way to address that right now, under Code Section 127, an education assistance program can pay the cost of repaying student loans. So that's, an employer could adopt a Section 127 plan to help employees pay off their student loans.
Good point.
Well, Nichole, thank you for coming on to the Benefits Companion to discuss this gender gap in retirement savings. That'll wrap up our discussion. If listeners have any questions or suggestions for future episodes, please contact me. You can also visit our employee benefits page at williamsmullen.com/employee benefits. There you can find out more about our team, as well as past episodes of this podcast and legal alerts. And finally, be sure to subscribe to this podcast to be notified when our next episode posts. Thanks for listening.